Tyler, today we're talking about some creepy stuff.
Yeah, it's a little bit creepy. I haven't watched that movie. Would you say The Social
Social
Dilemma?
dilemma. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's somewhat of fear. So I
You
haven't.
haven't watched it out of fear?
Yeah, I just feel like it's. I don't want to watch it. Maybe I
So that
will.
was like everyone's like, "Did you see this movie? It's like crazy." Like, but and I watched it. I'm like, I, I'm pretty sure I wrote notes down in my phone. I was like,
Yeah.
"Oh, I got to utilize that." And yeah, I mean, what we're talking about is, specifically right now is like the whole like Facebook and Instagram targeted ads, right? It's when you go to the store and you think about buying something and then you leave and then you get an ad in your phone. Like, how was my phone listening to me? Like, how did it know I wanted a coffee maker? But the reality is, it talks about how it predicts your behavior, and there's like a real case to that. Ultimately, like, we as humans are more predictable. And anytime I've ever been in a position where I open my phone and I'm like, that's weird. I was just thinking about that. And I didn't say it out loud. Like, how did my phone know? Is it tapped into my brain somehow? And if you sit there and really think about it, it's like, oh no, I started thinking about coffee makers because I was just with, you know, Tyler, who bought a coffee maker, and my phone was in the proximity of his, and I have a sharing thing on my phone, so it tells me that I'm near Tyler, and Tyler probably talked about coffee makers because he just bought it. Like, I'm going down a tangent. However, we're going to talk about how that's related to building and how
Yeah.
you can utilize a marketing strategy. Dude, I'm fired up.
Yeah, I mean, we had Spencer, Spencer on to discuss this, and what
Spencer Powell
his
from
company is Builder Funnel.
Builder Funnel.
Um, so essentially, it's not using these exact tactics, but why are residential remodeling and building companies not using marketing tactics like
Yeah.
every other business in every other industry, and developing a proper marketing plan and allocating budget towards that to drive leads to your business? And we discuss everything from top to bottom, but even as simple as like, hey, I just have a word of mouth business, and it's like, well, the word of mouth businesses come from doing a project for somebody. So if you get more leads, it's just more word of mouth referrals if it's a good experience for you. So it's an interesting conversation, and it's just not something that I feel a lot of people, myself included, consider a proper, adequate marketing plan for their business, because it's just not everyday occurrence with what we do. But that's his market, that's his demographic, that's where he chose to specialize for his marketing agency. It's residential remodeling contractors, which is an interesting little niche, and he explains why he's in there and how he's made that work. It's a cool conversation.
Yeah. And by the end of it, you're going to hear me spend money. This podcast is brought to you by Andersen. When making decisions on the product you spec, we're always thinking about what's right for the customer and what the specific project's needs are. We're also thinking about our reputation, and Andersen knows that the product they manufacture are part of the legacy that we're all trying to build.
From Fibrex composite material that delivers performance and looks at a budget-friendly price point, to the Easy Connect reinforced joining system that makes it easier to assemble oversized window walls with less people, to Andersen's best performing A-series product line with the most energy efficient windows and doors Andersen has ever offered. Whatever your building needs are, they've got you covered. Andersen knows it's about fewer callbacks and products that will perform over time. That's why they test their products beyond the threshold required by the industry.
Andersen appreciates that. While it may be their products going into our projects, it's ultimately our brands that we're building. And they're proud to be helping us craft our legacies. Learn more about their product offering at andersenwindows.com. This podcast is brought to you by Buildertrend. Running multiple projects at a time wouldn't work without a solid system for keeping everyone on the same page. Luckily, there's an easy way to keep your teams, your subs, and most importantly, your clients in the loop of what's happening on a project.
With Buildertrend's construction management app, you and your team can post daily progress notes, photos, and schedule updates from anywhere. Your clients can then access all this information in their customer portal without having to call, text, or email you with every little question. Are they insinuating that customers call and text us with every little question? They may be right.
They are.
Uh,
I would agree with them.
I feel like they're onto something. But to learn how you can update clients without lifting a finger, go to buildertrend.com/MC demo to see the customer portal in action.
Spencer, how are you, man?
I'm doing good. Yeah, good to see you
Yeah,
guys.
good to see you. We chatted not too long ago, right? I was on your podcast a couple months ago. I don't
Yeah,
remember when it
that sounds
was.
about right. 2 or 3 months.
Yeah,
Goes quick. Yeah.
it's crazy. We had Jeff Sweener on last week, and he was talking about what was he episode like 50,
Yeah, it was like years ago.
and we were like, oh, that we as he was getting on, we didn't think it was that long ago, and we're like, wait, we're at episode 280, which is bananas. How many episodes do you have on yours at this point?
That's a good question. I think it says in the 200s, but we've
Yeah.
done like a few different series, so I
Mm,
feel like we've probably recorded 3 or 400, something like that.
yeah.
Damn.
So
When did
yeah,
you start?
several years ago. I don't know. I should know, but I don't know. We've just been doing it for a while. I remember when we started it, I just told the team like we're going to do this for a year before we even decide if we're going to keep going or not. So I don't know. It's probably been close to 6 years, maybe 5 or 6.
Yeah, similar. Is the podcast at this point like the anchor that you like? Is that the right word? Like the center of what you do?
Um,
Like I
yes
guess
and
where most
no.
of your
Yeah,
effort and revenue is produced from?
I would. I don't know that I would call it the center. It's a big piece, but
Yeah.
we've put a lot of time and energy into our like SEO and content and blogs too, and
Hmm.
so we get a lot of just organic traffic, people finding us and converting. But I do. It's a big piece of people come into the ecosystem and then they end up following the podcast, and so when you end up hopping on the teams on a sales call or something, somebody will almost always mention, "Oh, I've been following the podcast for a while," or "just started following the podcast," or whatever it is. So it's hard to track all
Mm,
the nitty gritty details of the podcast that I would like to track, more so that we get with like web data with searches.
yeah.
So I don't know if that totally answered your question. I don't know if I'd call it the center piece, but it is a big piece.
Yeah. No, I mean, I guess I'm more looking at it as I guess I was more thinking about it in terms of revenue, right? Where it's
Hmm.
like, where's most of your revenue being generated? Obviously, you get so Funnel is a marketing agency for remodelers and builders,
Hmm.
um, and the podcast was probably or kind of obviously built out of the necessity to educate potential client base.
It's a big
So
factor. Yeah.
yeah, so I guess I think that's fair to say it's not the center, but it's a huge, probably driving force to your own funnel.
Yeah, it definitely is. It's, I would say, of like social, YouTube, podcast, that's the biggest channel is the podcast.
Hmm.
And part of it too was we try to be the agency that eats our own dog food. So like if we're gonna tell people you should be creating content and podcast, like
Hmm.
we try to be a really good example of that as well. And so that was a factor when we started it.
Yeah. The in terms of well, I guess in terms of creating content and eating your own dog food, I've never heard it said that way. Um, but has how has your business evolved? I guess over the course. How long have you been in business as Builder Funnel?
About 13 years since we started. I think the Builder Funnel brand was maybe a couple years into that, but we were
But you were
essentially doing the same kind of
but
stuff.
always doing marketing
Yeah,
and
digital marketing. Yep.
so I'd love to just like I want to unpack marketing in general and just like how it's tied to remodeling and building. Obviously Tyler and I and a lot of our guests talk about marketing a lot, but being that you're a marketing agency for our industry, I'd love to understand how that has evolved over 13 years and what I would assume that you continue to struggle with in terms of like educating your client.
Hmm. Yes. Where do you want to start?
Well, start
Yeah.
13 years ago. Like, why did you get into marketing for builders?
Yeah. It was kind of a merge of a couple of things. So my family has a long construction background out in the Seattle market. So I think at this point, 110, 11, 12 years, something like that. Many generations. So spec building, built up apartment buildings, built up some retirement communities. But really, when I kind of got out of college and entered that space, my uncles were running the company and they were doing a lot of spec building, but that pretty much went to zero in the Great Recession, and so they started doing a lot more remodeling and custom homes. And so when I got out of school, I was really just online a lot, looking for jobs, trying to figure out what I was going to do, and I started seeing some businesses were using social media, and that was like new at the time. It was like
Mhm,
Facebook business pages, like whoa, and then Twitter accounts, and that was basically it. No Instagram, no TikTok, no hows. um, and so I was just like, hey, can I work on your blogs and your SEO and like do some Facebook and Twitter for you? And so I did that for them and a couple other just like family connections, and started to just go down the rabbit hole of SEO and content and blogging, how all these pieces work together and how do you track it. And over several years, I think it was about 4 years, we helped them grow from 2 million to 10 million and gaining traction and learning a lot. And so that's how we got into this space plus
mhm,
digital, kind of married the two. And a couple years in, it was kind of like, well, we were just targeting anyone, and then it just made sense to focus on an industry. And we had the background, we had several clients that were builders, and said, hey, I think we know the space well enough, we should just pick a vertical, because then we have a chance at being the best, versus if you're a marketing agency for everybody, like you're nobody.
mhm. How many other companies are competing specifically in the building space?
There's definitely a handful.
Mhm,
Some of them I would say have picked like 3 to 5 verticals. So you go to their site, and construction is one of them. Um, but you can find them. You can Google and find a handful. We don't bump into a ton of them in like, oh, we're talking to these 3 companies and they're all 3 are building or remodeling focused. But if I had to ballpark, there's probably like, I don't know, 7 to 15 that are, it's
mhm.
either one vertical or the primary ish vertical.
And in terms of like, so you jump into this vertical of just building and remodeling, and you talk about obviously from a marketing perspective, creating content and being relevant, but a lot of what your website talks about is being results driven and guaranteed results. And so when I think about that, I think about there's metrics, and
Mhm.
you must be measuring, you must be measuring something,
Yes.
because in order to get result, like to guarantee a result, then you need to be able to measure that result. So what are some of those KPIs that you're tracking, and how are you guaranteeing that this is an investment that builders and remodelers should be considering?
Yeah. That was something that always bugged me early on with like blogging and posting to Facebook and Twitter in those first couple of years. It was like, how do I
Hmm.
quantify this? And you start with what you can, right? It's traffic and impressions, but at the end of the day, what we're after is revenue, and whatever gets us to that path, and it's revenue, and then it's type of revenue, right? So if you do high end design build, you don't want handyman projects, so that matters
Right.
too. So it's quantity and quality, um, and really, there's software out there that allows you to track from click to close, if you want to summarize it
Hmm.
that way. But that was something that was really important as a part of our early path, is we need to put the tracking software in place. Otherwise, we're just guessing over and over and over again. And you can feel like it's working, or you can feel like it's not working. And the owner will tell you like it's not working, or, oh man, we're really getting a lot of traction right now. And that's just a feeling they get based on like inbound calls and, you know, how many leads they're getting. But unless you can actually tie it down. So just getting the software in place. We use HubSpot. There's tons of other tools. That's the one we partnered with, and we've been super happy with them for a long, long time. So we continue to do that, but they're not the only option out there. So back to your question, the way we track it, I mean, the basic level is traffic, leads, sales. And when you get sales, what's the revenue associated with that remodel? Was it a $500,000 addition? Was it a $150,000 kitchen? What was it? And if somebody hits your site and you drop a cookie there, they browse around, they fill out a form. Now we know it's Mary Smith. Mary Smith opens some emails. She comes back to the site several times. She meets with the salesperson. Eventually, the deal is closed 6 months down the road. You go, oh, Mary first came to us from organic Google search, and that was $150,000.
Mm-hmm.
Now we've got that closed loop reporting. And so for us, you asked about the like guaranteed results. Like we just go off of data. And so we did a data poll. Our latest one was late last year, and our average client doubles web leads in 6 months and triples them in a year. And so we know, hey, if we follow this framework that we've been doing in dozens of markets and we track it, like we know we're going to improve, we know we're going to increase traffic and leads. But you just get better and better at that if you track it. So for anyone listening, I would say like step one is making sure you have the tracking in place.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you don't have that, you're just going to be going off of feeling and guessing, and that's it. I mean, you're really just making a best guess.
So for somebody who has no idea what you actually do, what are you actually putting in place through websites, through blogs, or through whatever sort of systems you're implementing for somebody who hires you? What are you actually putting into place to help drive leads to their website? Like, what are you actually doing?
Yeah, we kind of break it down into like our framework. And so phase one is traffic drivers. Okay. We got to get more people that are interested in remodeling to our website, right? Like that's step one. Typically, that's going to be website content, SEO, blogging, social media can be a traffic driver, paid ads, Google, Meta. Those things get people to the site. Once they get there, we have to recognize only 4% of the market are what we call active buyers. So they're ready for a sales conversation. They want to go to the contact us form. They want to book a call. You know, they want to talk to a salesperson and kind of find out more. The other 96% are browsing. They're future buyers. They might be buying in 2 weeks, 2 months, 2 years, like we don't know. But they're on the site, and they're on the site for a reason. So we also want to capture that audience. And so we talk about top of funnel and bottom of the funnel to keep it basic. Like top of funnel is, hey, let me download your cost guide or a process guide or something where we're going to swap info. Here's some more educational material. You give me your name and email. Now I've made a lead conversion. Bottom of the funnel is easy, right? Phone number, contact us. Everyone has that on their website. Then we can move them into the nurture bucket, which is, okay, we converted somebody. How do we stay in front of them during this potentially multi-year research process while they're thinking about their remodel, or 2-week research process, depending on where they're at? And typically email is the leading channel there to nurture, but social is a great nurturing channel. You know, somebody finds you on Google, then they pop over to your Instagram, they follow you while they're in research mode, retargeting ads. So those are all you've heard a lot of tactics during this, but for us, it's really big on understanding the framework and what's the purpose of all these different tools. Because otherwise you go to a conference and you go to a social media, you know, session, and they'll be like, Instagram is where it's at or whatever. And they'll list like 25 best practices for Instagram. But if that's all you do and you walk away and you're like, I got to post daily to Instagram, like I can tell you that's probably not the answer. Based on the data we look at, Google drives almost all the leads. Social nurtures the leads and you build your brand. If you're going to build a personal brand, really go all into social, different story. But most people aren't willing to do that and commit to that. They just want to like post a photo a few times a week. Like that's not going to move the needle. So the framework for us is really important.
So are you guys essentially building this framework for people to say, okay, we can follow this path from A to B to get us towards where we want to be? Or are you also offering services where you can handle the social media aspect or the website aspect that's necessary to obtain the results that you're looking to do? Like, are you basically saying, here's the formula, or are you also offering people to implement that formula and implement what needs to be done?
Yeah, we typically offer both. So the strategy and the framework and laying out, like, here's the roadmap, here's the blueprint, you go do it. In that situation, we're giving them all the tools, all of our internal training systems and SOPs on, like, how do you write a blog for SEO and lead conversion and not just for fun. But then a lot of people just want us to implement the plan too once it's done. So um, we changed our model. I guess it's been a couple years now. We used to only do it for people, and the more I have gone through marketing and just seen how impactful it is, I realize that there are some things that as an agency we won't be able to do as well as an in-house team, but that in-house team needs to have the knowledge and the skills. And so we said, hey, is there a way we can fill that gap for somebody that has like a marketing coordinator or somebody on staff that is doing a lot of the marketing, but maybe their specialty is in social or design, but they really don't know about SEO and, blogging content or lead conversion or tracking and metrics. Like, can we help pull them up so that over a longer time horizon, we can be the guide and the coach, but they can really build marketing as a core competency in-house. Because I think over a long time horizon, that's the best result. But I don't think every company is set up for that. And not all companies have the desire to do that either. They'd rather just, partner with somebody like us.
Yeah, I feel like even from an accountability perspective, it's like, all right, so we're going to give you everything you need to be, but then are you guys implementing this? Is it getting done the way that it needs to? And is the effectiveness of your company and what you're doing being mismeasured because people aren't executing the way that it needs to be? And it's like, well, all their shit doesn't work. We did everything that they asked us to do, and it's like, well, did you really? Um, which I feel like would be tough. I think it'd be tough to start out that way as well. Maybe be able to implement that after, like you said, like you have. But I think that it would be tough to basically say, okay, here's what you have to do, and then just put that in somebody else's hands and rely on them to execute your formula.
Well, you
Yeah.
think about all of the how-to out there, right? It's like, and the argument, it's like, well, I don't want to show someone how to do it because they're just going to do it themselves. It's like, the reality is they're not going to.
Yeah.
Like, I can't tell you how many things I've saved in my phone or downloaded or a guide to do this or here's how to make an extra whatever. Like, all of it comes down to execution. Where it's
Mm-hmm.
like, I went through an 8-hour seminar on how to run Facebook ads because it was super interesting to me. Guess what I did right after that? I hired someone to run my Facebook ad because I was like, I don't remember what to do.
Yeah. And it's a
That
lot, right?
it is. A, a funny story, real quick. I remember in college, I wanted to learn SolidWorks because I thought it would be valuable in my car building days. And I remember going through the tutorials, like they had a bunch of tutorials, and I made every single thing, followed the tutorial, nailed it. And I was like, all right, blank project. I'm going to make, a cup, like something very simple. I remember staring at that screen, not knowing how to start. And it was like, I've done all of this work and it's like, I still don't, there's so much to it. There's so many things to understand and it becomes overwhelming. And I think marketing is a great example of one that is very overwhelming, especially nowadays. And Facebook ads are a great example. You mentioned it a minute ago, like retargeting ads. People are like, what the hell is retargeting?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, oh, you get an audience and then you create a quote unquote like audience. It's like, what's a like audience?
Yeah.
It's like
What's an audience? Yeah.
all the people that are like the audience that have already been to your website. Well, how do you know who's been to my website? Oh, we have a Facebook pixel.
Yeah.
Well,
Did you put
what's a
that on
Facebook
12 months
pixel?
ago? Yeah.
Yeah, did you put what's a Facebook pixel?
Yeah.
And it becomes this like daunting task where, I mean, even for us, we do a tremendous job with content creation, and I owe that to my team. But beyond that, it's like it's very organic in what we do. And and yeah, if you Google NS Builders or Nick Schiffer, like we're on the first 3 pages, if not more. But if you Google like home builders in Boston, Massachusetts, I don't know if we'll pop up. And that's the reality. Like no one's going on Google typing in like, I want to build a house. Oh, let me type in NS Builders. It's like, no, you need like best builder in Boston. It's like, or who can build modern homes in Boston, whatever it is. It's like, and then you go through this whole understanding of, okay, how do I show up there?
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting that you say that the data shows that most people are in the nurturing phase on social media, which when you say that makes sense. Um, and before that, I probably would have argued and said that where a lot of our clients are learning about us through social media, but the reality is they were probably already in a phase of wanting to do it, whether it is 2 weeks or 2 years or longer.
Yeah. It I want people to walk away from that. Like if we just are zoning in on this right here, social media can drive leads for your business, and it does for
Mhm.
many businesses. But the data, at least that we're looking at, says for most local remodeling businesses, Google drives your leads and social is the nurture tool, because they're not on Instagram typing in Boston remodeler, right? They're on Google typing that in, and then they want to verify. And verify is like, oh, I'll go to social, I'll check these companies out, I'll learn about their
Mhm.
culture, their DNA, see some projects like behind the scenes. I want to get more, and that's where that happens.
So
I was going to say, as for your business, who do you feel is the ideal customer coming to you, and what are they generally looking for? Like, are most of your customers looking for more leads or better leads?
Yeah, I would say generally doing 2 to 15 or 20 million in sales. They want to grow. Most common is they need more leads. They're kind of stalling out, right? Like word of mouth took them to a certain point, and they're like, I'm kind of stuck here. And they now are like, oh, marketing, that could be something different, add another channel. But pretty close behind it is the quality of lead. They're looking for the right type. And over the last several years, a lot of our clients have wanted to raise their average project size. And they're like, if I could just do the same number of projects, but bump up my average project size, like that would be really nice. And so it is focused on those are the two big ones, right? They want more leads or better quality. And there's a little bit of an adjustment in how you approach that. But I'm also a big believer in you get to quality through quantity many times. And you just have to be
mm,
more diligent about pre-qualification. Like if you guys had 100 leads a month coming through your website, and then you had 500 leads a month, do you think there's more ideal projects in that bucket of 500? Probably,
mhm.
but we're going to have to qualify through a lot more to get to those. And also, as a business owner, I'd much rather have more leads than not enough. And so it's a better problem to have, even if you are having to weed through the quote unquote tire kickers and the junk marketing leads and all that. And it's like, just get more and then qualify harder. And so
It,
those are the two
uh,
problems, though.
on Tyler's question, you said 2 to 15 million a year, but what about the type of project? Are you guys tracking like the most common type of project that you are bringing through that funnel?
I have not gone and pulled that, but just anecdotally from all of our clients, I would say almost all of it's design build, almost
Hmm.
all remodeler. We do have custom builders as well. But on the remodel side, most of our clients don't really want to do stuff below 50 grand. And,
Hmm.
obviously it goes way above 500,000. But I think if I were to just pick like the core where the most of them fall, it's between that 85 and just above 200 kind of range.
And is that based on like essentially the framework that you've built? I mean, I guess like what I mean by that is, I mean, 80 to the 250 or whatever, or 225, whatever you just said. That's going to be the majority of the market that is remodeling. Like
Hmm.
that there, like you said, there's 500 versus 100. Like there's more of those type of clients.
Yeah.
I guess my question is rooted from, when we do all this marketing effort, it's, people are always like, dude, like the people that you're marketing to, the people that you want to be building for, like you're talking these multimillionaires, like these people that have a high net worth. They're not on social media looking at your stuff. They're not finding you through a Facebook ad. They're not finding you on Google. Like someone else is finding you for them. And it's like you got to be marketing to that person, or you got to be marketing to the architect. Where so and to further expand, it's like I had a conversation with another builder today, and we were talking about these high net worth clients and how he got into building these homes, and he's probably the 20th person that's told me. He's like, honestly, man, you once you do one, it never stops. And he goes, we built this guy a house. He works for this finance company. And once we finished his house, his buddy wanted a house. And then his buddy wanted a house. And guess what? The one that you just saw down the street, that's his other buddy. And he's like, it's just, that's that world that you play in. It's not a matter of like, oh, I know him from social media, or I've seen his marketing campaigns. I, is there truth to that?
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, but I would, but there is a way to reach that audience online as well. But
And what
it'd
is
be
that
silly of
way?
me to say like, no, no, it's all digital. Like that's not the truth, right? Like, of course, depending on who you're targeting, you would take a different approach. But
Yeah.
also, like, we've created content on like airplane hangars and country clubs, and like you think about where do those people hang out and how do you attract, like, let's talk about the top yachting clubs in the area. And so there are ways, but yeah, the higher you go, there's definitely that relational component.
So I saw you say, I don't remember if it was an article or a podcast where it's really important for people to be focusing on creating content than specifically ads. And I hear you now saying, "Hey, we've created content for these people." What is the angle and the differentiation there between creating content for people and specifically ads?
Yeah, so just to zoom in on content, for us, the common pieces would be a blog post, a project spotlight page. It could expand into, okay, it's a podcast, it's a YouTube video. But most of our clients, like, we're creating written content for them because we can't be the ones in front of the camera or doing the podcast for them, and most don't want to. Um, so that's content. So an example would be, I'm going to write a blog post on a very specific topic around a keyword search that we're hoping that, hey, when somebody does this search, they find our content. So twofold. One, we're trying to attract them through a specific search in the area. So the right type of client doing a search, now they're on our site. And then we can get into lead conversion, all that, but really pull them in and then educate them, add value, give first. So we're big education, believers in that marketing style. An ad would be, hey, I want to run some ads for these keywords, and I'm going to show up at the top of Google, and it's going to be best builder in Boston, click here, and then we take them to a page on our website. So you're basically saying, hey, I'm willing to pay for this traffic, and I'm picking the keywords and the areas, and I'm just going to drive them to the site. That's like the basic breakdown is, one, you're paying for traffic, one, you're hoping to earn it through content and SEO.
And do you feel that the creation of content is more authentic, more genuine, more valuable, or is it a combination of both that works best for people?
Typically, the way I view content, I mean, if you just look at the stats, like organic traffic typically converts higher than paid traffic. And I think a lot of us have just, we've been using Google a long time, and we know paid ads from organic, and we tend to have a higher trust level with those organic searches. Um, Also, there's a lot of paid ads that the people running them, like, depending on what the search was, and they click it and they get there and they're like, I'm in the wrong place. Like, there was a disconnect there. Whereas organic, high likelihood that it's accurate because that's all Google's algorithm, and that's that's their whole premise, right? You do a search, we get you to the right information really fast. And if they don't do that, we don't use Google. So I think there's that layer of it. But also, when somebody does a search and they come through organic and they're reading content, you are now building trust. And what I've seen is that the closest you can get to a referral lead is a content generated lead. So think about if you've ever generated a project from your podcast, if somebody's listened to you once a week for 6 months and then they meet you in person, they've probably spent more time with you than their best friend that year in their ears. So the trust level goes way up. And that's why content's really powerful.
Um, so you're essentially, you said that you can't be the one in front of the camera. Um, so you guys are primarily, when it comes to content, creating written content for these people. That makes sense. Have you ever considered branching out into partnering or having a resource that can create more digital content for your customers or your clients?
Yes. And we're working at that. It's been a slow burn. I would say our biggest hurdle there is still having the person feel comfortable in getting in front of the camera. Because we can partner with a local videographer and we'll say, hey, these are the topics, these are the
Mhm.
questions you need to ask. Like, just get that person in front of the camera, edit it. Like, then we can embed it in the blog, put it on YouTube, get it on social. Like, we know how to do it, but getting somebody comfortable in front of the camera is a big, big hurdle.
So that right there, right? Like you think about any good business, like you solve some big problem. That is the number one problem. I shouldn't, maybe not number one. Content is one problem when you talk about marketing. Every website builder will tell you that. I built this beautiful website. Now I need content. Oh, I don't have any, or I'll get you it. Here's a Dropbox file. Which ones you want to use? I don't care. You pick. Puts them on the website. Oh, I hate those photos. Change them to these ones.
Yeah.
Right. But then the other side of it is like you're talking about video creation and on camera. People don't feel comfortable with it. And yes, today, like I'm very comfortable on camera. But when I started being on camera 10 years ago, I hated it and I was terrible at it. There, my mind goes in a handful of different directions here in terms of like how do you solve that, but there's got to be a way, or at least a worthy effort to figure out like how do we create that person or that comfort level for that builder. It's like you've already done the hard part of getting the builder to understand that this is a valuable exercise, and now they're just you've been presented another roadblock of like, hey, you know, he doesn't want to be on camera, or he can't speak, he's not comfortable speaking to a camera. How do you fix that? And I
Yeah.
know that's like the question, right?
Yeah.
But I'm gonna go out on a maybe a slightly wild limb here for a second, but I recorded a couple sentences for Doug, who's our producer at Motif Media, right? And I'm like, what am I doing? And he's like, if you record these sentences, I should be able to extract the audio out of it and be able to type in, and then it will sound like you're talking. Now, I don't know if he's done it yet. I'm very eager to hear what it sounds like. Maybe I'll sound more polished. But thinking about like AI,
Mhm.
that could be a tool for this, where it's like, hey, I just need to put you on camera. You don't even have to talk. Just stand there, and then we'll handle it from there, and be able to create content. Now, again, like there's a massive amount of effort that goes into this, and I'm going into kind of like a wild AI world of solution, but there's got to be a solution, and especially if there's value in it. And Tyler and myself know firsthand the value of video, and what it's done for our own Modern Craftsman brand, personal brand, and business brand.
Yeah. I think the AI direction will happen, right? Like the audio
Mhm.
piece, you can already do that pretty well. You can overlay audio on like B-roll of projects and stuff like that. Like that would be a quicker path. The video will come, right? There will be really good, like you're watching me move and speak and everything, but it's not me. And I know there's already examples out there of that. I think the easy solution without the AI tool is um, the side angle shot. You show up, you point the camera at me, and then the person asking the questions is a little off. So I'm turned and I'm just having a conversation with a person, and they're just asking you questions about stuff you already know. What's the design build process? And then that person that's in front of the camera isn't looking at the camera, they're looking at the person having a conversation.
Hmm.
So I think you can get a lot of content that way. But when you ask somebody to stare down the barrel of the camera, that's a lot
That's it.
scarier.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
so I think there are some easy ways that you can also just hire somebody that's like, this is going to be our content person. They're going to kind of be the face of our company, somebody that loves being in front of the
S-
camera.
s- So, again, going back to AI for a second, I forget what it's called, but there's an app that you can stare at a screen like me talking to you, but it makes my eyes look like it's staring into the camera, which is bananas to me.
It's
Like,
wild. Yeah.
I mean, I guess everything makes sense at this point, but you
Yeah.
know, it was like, oh, this is an issue. Like people keep not looking at the camera. Why don't we just create it so it automatically like digitizes my eyeballs straight forward? It's so weird, but it's like this is the world that we live in.
Yeah. There's some crazy stuff coming.
I just
I
asked.
forget what they were trying to do when I shot that MT Copeland stuff. They didn't do it, but maybe they were trying to have a monitor that I was like everyone was going to speak into rather than a camera. Like the camera was going to have a monitor, so you were looking at whoever was
Mhm,
asking you the questions like right in front of the camera, which would also help. Yeah, that's what it was because they were offset asking questions, and then they just had the camera set up filming me. And initially, that's the way they were going to set things up, just because most people who are going and teaching there were not familiar with looking at a camera and speaking to camera, and it
mhm,
is very weird. I also think that having a business like that, just working with somebody who can make people feel more at ease, would help as well. It's like if somebody's there to lead the conversation, even if they're not from the company, it's the same thing as somebody who can hold a good interview and make somebody feel comfortable during an interview process. Someone who's a professional at that can bring out the best of somebody on film, allow them to let their shoulders down, and create that digital content. I mean, even what Doug can put together, seeing it finished, it's like this looks and sounds way better than it felt.
mhm,
And I think that that helps a lot. But I do believe that it is super valuable for companies to put their face on camera and speak to camera. And I also think that when you're going to hire somebody who's working in your house, that there's just that personal level that you can reach at that point where it's like, okay, this is a human's company. It's not just a business who's going to be coming in here. um, and I think that that's the goal with a lot of social and everything else, but I do think that being able to offer those services, aside from just the written content and everything else, would be, especially for what you're doing, would be really, really valuable for customers. You think about even for me, right? I have access to Doug. Um, I have access to people who could film and Doug could edit, but it's a daunting process to undertake that, and to be able to hire one company who could handle all of that would be like, oh, that's one less thing to do. Like, let's
Yeah.
just do it, sign up for all of it, let's pay.
Yeah.
I
We're working towards it. Not there
I
yet.
think the other thing, especially from a marketing perspective, is I said it earlier, but there's so many parts to it where you're called builder funnel, right? And anyone that knows what a sales funnel is, it's like getting that prospect in and then bringing them down to closing a sale, right? But there's also this like circular momentum where, they're being introduced to you somewhere, and then it's the follow-up, and then it's the targeted ad, then it's the email campaign, then it's, making sure that the email campaign is scheduled to go out every 7 days, and then it's every 2, like, it's on repeat. And I read a bunch of articles about marketing, and I was recently reading into email marketing, and they were talking about, when people unsubscribe, and the thing that leads to the most unsubscribes is when that email doesn't come in on a regular occurrence. If you email them every day at the same exact time, and that content is like something that they don't read, like I'll give you an example. I'm subscribed to the Morning Brew. I
Hmm.
haven't read that email in years, but I refuse to unsubscribe. But the other day I got an email. I'm like, I haven't seen this thing pop in my inbox in forever. And it just made me realize, like, I don't even like this content. Unsubscribe. And it was, and my, where I'm going with this is like, these are all the things that it's like, I don't have the time to do this. Like, I can't schedule this. Like, this is way too, it's getting to a point where it's like, why even do it? If everybody's going to unsubscribe, I can't even dedicate the time to putting it out. And for me personally, you know, like, that's something that I want to get better at. I want email marketing in our company. I want email campaigns. Catherine is my content manager. She's primarily working on social content planning, making sure our brand partnerships are fulfilled. And I was like, hey, you want to handle email campaigns? She's like, uh, I'm happy to help, but that's not something I'm good at. I'm like, oh, cool. So we're on the same page. I need someone that is good, that is good at it. And, you know, I don't know where I'm going with this, but my point is like, there's just so many parts to this where, I think about an agency like you, and I've actually invested into HubSpot for a little time, and end up canceling it because I was like, it's a lot of money, and if I'm not using it, and even if I am using it, it's a lot of money, but it's fine. Like, you see, you can understand the value of it. But I'm sitting here, I'm like, I would love for when someone shows up to my website that I'm collecting their email. Like, I do collect their emails, but I don't do anything with them.
Yeah. How many
So it's like,
emails are you sitting on?
I don't know, 1,000,
Yeah,
maybe,
it's a gold
maybe.
mine. It's a gold mine
Right.
right there. Yeah.
And it's like, I could be emailing them, and I have the content. It could be
Hmm.
just like, hey, I posted on Instagram today. And that's the, maybe I'm just interviewing to hire you. But but that's ultimately like what, you know, you're looking to help fulfill, where it's like, hey, you guys, like, listen, you want to market, and you want to do it in a way that's all encompassing. You said it at the beginning, like, you got to measure it, but you also have to go into it with a plan. And, like, for me, like, if you said, Nick, what's your marketing plan? I could sit here and I could spit out what I would want in terms of, like, hey, I post on social media. When I post on social media, it sends out an email letting everyone know I posted on social media. And then when they get to that page, I know they're going to engage. And if they engage, then they get a targeted ad to them saying, hey, I noticed you engaged with my post. Are you thinking about building? If you are, you should read my 10 things you know about building. And then they download it. It's like, hey, they're thinking about building. And it's just this, like, circular, uh, you know, momentum. And I mean, I'm geeking out on this a little bit, but it's, the what's it, the Social Dilemma on Netflix.
Never saw it.
So it's about the Facebook targeting ads, and, like, you know it's like, it's so weird. Like, I was thinking about buying coffee makers, and then all of a sudden I got on Instagram and there was just coffee maker ads. It's like, well, if you really sat there and actually, like, understood why you started thinking about coffee makers, it's not that it's guessing what you're thinking about, it's that it's predicting what's on your what based on your behavior.
Hmm.
And, for me, like, I don't find that weird. It's like, well, and it's like, well, yeah, I went to the store and I used my credit card that's tied to my phone and bought an espresso machine. And then, sure, like, my credit card tied to my phone knew I bought an espresso because it shows up on my account, and Nespresso is like, hey, I want that data. He bought it. Now I'm going to target him these brand new pods that we just came out with, pumpkin spice latte flavor. It's like, how'd they know I got an espresso? It's like, because you used a plastic credit card. And that's like the depth that's really, for me, it's really interesting. And frankly, that's how I, like, my clothes are from Instagram.
Yeah.
Like
Most marketers don't think it's weird because you love marketing. So you're like, oh, this is just good marketing,
yeah.
Right person, right time.
It's like, oh, I'm sick of these Festool ads marketing to me. Like, I don't want it. It's like, based on your try, like what you're doing online, you do want it.
So Spencer, for your general remodeling contractor who's within like this demographic or this sales volume that really is your market, do you, when you figure out how much money you're going to be spending on these accounts, are you allocating like a certain amount of their sales to be spending on these? How are you determining how much they should be spending on whatever sort of marketing program they want to implement?
Yeah. It's like the classic design build answer. Like it depends. But the factors would be how big are they now and how fast do they want to grow in what time frame, right? Like two $5 million companies, one that wants to go to 6 next year, one that wants to go to 8, different plan.
Let's role play.
Yeah.
Let's role play.
Okay.
Tyler makes $2 million a year, and he wants to go up to $5 million
Okay. Why?
because he wants to be a boss,
I want
Okay.
to make more money,
make more
Are
money.
you
afford
are
better
you not
things.
profitable at 2 or?
Profitable at 2, but I want nicer things. My wife wants nicer things.
Yeah, and that's motivating.
For us right now, yeah.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
need to make more money. I'm looking at how much we're making, and realistically, there's some things we want in the future, and I don't think that we're going to be able to make it happen unless I more than double what I'm making now. So,
That makes sense. Do you want that 5 million to be more of the same types of projects, or are you guys trying to change the scope?
um, I think that I would like to, like, I don't want to completely restructure the business. As far as size wise, I understand I'll have to some, but I think that I would rather uh increase the quality of lead and the quality of job rather than just increase volume of work.
Okay. What's your average job size now?
150,000,
And ideally, where do you want that to be?
maybe 250,000.
Okay. If we could wave the magic wand and go from 2 million this year to 5 million next year, could you deliver the work if I handed you the leads?
Yes.
You have the team?
I'm confident that I
Okay.
could.
Right on. Have you thought about a marketing budget?
As of now, no, that's why I'm on the phone with you.
Makes sense. Yeah.
So
Well, I'd
everything right
say,
now has been word of mouth and self-generated
yeah. Do you do any marketing at all right now or?
social media.
Okay. What are you doing for social?
Instagram brand partnerships, podcast, blog posts, but nothing. I'm not paying anyone to create or generate content for myself.
Okay. How many leads do you get a month now?
Let's see, a dozen.
A dozen. Okay. So if we want to go to 5, we need probably between 30 and 35 leads a month. Does that sound about right?
Sure.
Okay. And how many of the dozen are coming from your website versus referrals and word of mouth?
About half.
Okay, so 6. Okay. And you're not running any paid ads?
Nope.
Okay. Um, well, I can tell you most of our clients that have similar goals are spending somewhere between 60 grand a year and 120 grand a year. Is that something that is in the range of what you're thinking about to get to 5 million?
I would say so if it's doubling what I'm making, or what my sales volume is. That's a fair amount more sales volume. Obviously, costs will increase, but I would say that that's a fair investment.
Okay. And what's your gross margin on your projects right now at the 150?
Oh, geez. 150. Let's see.
I was making these numbers up. I thought,
I am making these numbers
oh, okay.
up. Um, let's see. Let's say 18%.
Whew,
Let's say 20%.
20%. Well, we gotta get that up. Um, but okay, 150. So you're clearing 30 on a project.
Yeah, let's say that's easy math.
Okay. So if you were to spend say 90 grand a year, we'd need 3 additional projects to break even and maybe 6 additional projects to at least double your money on investing with us. Does that sound
So
accurate?
10 additional 9 to 10 additional projects.
9 to 10 would.
Additional, yeah, if it's 6 to double, 3 to clear my money, 6 to double would be like 9 additional, 10 additional projects, yeah.
Okay. Oh, I'm confused by the 9 to 10 because if we're
Didn't you say
clearing
that I need 3 to clear my money and then an additional 6 to double what I'm making?
6
Is that
total.
what you said? Oh,
That's 6
6
total.
total.
Yeah.
Okay,
Is that how you think about it? If you're adding marketing into overhead, then we need 90. If you're going to spend 90, you clear 30 on a job. You need 3 to break even. 6 would
sure.
double your money.
Okay.
Okay. Well, obviously we would have done a lot more looking at the website, traffic, conversion rates, stuff like that. But we could poke into some of that and say, hey, if we come in and install this whole framework, and our typical client is doubling web leads in 6 months and tripling them in a year, do you feel confident we can at least double your money, if not make a huge dent in getting to 5 million? 5 million in 1 year is a big ask. I'm definitely not going to overpromise on that one. We're going to need a lot of paid. We're going to need a lot of paid ads. But if we extend the timeline, I'm confident we'll get there.
I'm only going from 2 to 5, so.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. I mean, that's
uh,
generally, how we would. It's a lot of diagnosing where we are, because
Mhm.
where we are and where we're going is how we get there.
so
I think
where do you want for that size of contractor? Where would you say would their ideal profit margin be, if not 20%? Like what do you think is a fair range to be for most contractors to shoot for within that size range?
For gross margin, I mean north of 30, but I know a lot of guys are getting north of 40, so
Yeah,
35, 30, 35, somewhere in there. And obviously
and
then
you're
then you
talking
have all these
margin,
discussions,
right?
right? Gross
Yeah,
margin, yeah.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, as you grow, then you start making those decisions. Do we want to increase our gross margin and maybe like sales volume doesn't go up as quick? Or do we just want more leads? Like we'll close deals at a little bit lower gross margin, but we're going to do it in volume. It's part of the strategy.
Mhm. And what do you I mean, on the custom building side, they're not typically seeing a gross margin of 30 to 40%.
No, yeah,
That's pretty specific to the remodeling side.
for sure.
And I can tell you firsthand, like we weren't even clearing over 30 on some of our remodeling way back when. Um and it was it was wrong. Like we weren't set up correctly. We thought we were, and we had all these additional job costs that we were just, frankly, not accounting for. But I think it's pretty common to see on the custom building side, especially in Massachusetts, in my market, anywhere, some guys are as low as 10, which is
I know.
bananas.
Yeah,
But and then you get upwards of 20. But
I
in the
feel
multi
like
uh,
15
17
to
to
20.
20 here.
yeah,
Yeah, 15
17
to
to
20.
20. You're not really seeing anything over 20 when you get into like the multi millions.
For sure.
Um, so, but at the same, like, the which is a good way to look at it, but it's also like what's the actual cash in hand, right? Where it's like the percentage doesn't, at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. It's just kind of the measurable, where it's like the actual cash expended. You can spend 1% of your budget in overhead, but if that's all of your cash, then it doesn't matter.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
I like the way that you kind of walk through that in terms of, hey, if someone's like, hey, how much to hire you guys? Oh, we're typically 60 to 120 grand a year. It's like, for marketing, screw it, forget it, bye.
Yeah.
where it's like, well, hold on. If you're spending 120 and I gave you $600,000 back, like, would you exchange 120 for 600? Well, of course. It's like that's a great return on my money. It's like, well, that's what we're talking about. It's
Yeah.
you gotta feed the machine. And I think a lot. I mean, even from the building side, and it's harder in terms of building and remodeling. But if we were to like, if I were to build someone a house, be like, hey, it's $5 million. It's like $5 million. That's a lot of money. It's like, yeah, but if you give me $5 million and I build you a house that's worth 8 million, would you do it?
Right.
So with regard to that, right? Because I think that anyone, if you tell anyone, right, you give us 60, we're going to make you 3 times that, the answer is yes. But the consideration and where the no's come from, where it's like, how long do I have to invest this prior to seeing a break even or a return?
Mm-hmm.
So my question to you would be, is there an average that you feel people are breaking even on that investment? I would assume that you're not taking 60 upfront and it's payments, whether per month or for services rendered. But what is that break even point, do you feel, on average for most people to start recouping their investment?
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely broken up over the course of a year, typically. It depends. I would say anywhere from 6 to 18 months. It's interesting just with our company. It's right around that like 9 to 15 month mark where you feel kind of that shift in momentum. And we have a lot of conversations around that 12-month mark where it's like, should we keep going? And then it's the 15-month mark. Like if we can get people there, then it's like you start that compounding effect of all the content and you're starting to rank for stuff. Like you can go from position 100 to position 11 and have made tons of progress, but you're still in the top of page 2. You're not getting any traffic. So it's a
Mm-hmm.
weird game that way. But obviously we look for wins in like increasing conversion rate right out of the gate, running some paid ads right out of the gate. Like, how do we get those wins early on while we build this long term strategy? Because we're not the hire us for 3 months, quick hitting agency. This year, our retention rate for clients is north of 90%. Typical agencies in the 30%.
Wow.
We're not perfect. And it probably won't hang out, where it is now. Like our last 3 years were about like 80-ish, if you take that average. But again, it's back to like strategy first, asking lots of questions, and then we've done this a lot. So if we see where you are and we see what gaps are, like let's fill the gaps first, or let's look for the low hanging fruit. But we're always going to be long term thinkers because we don't want to just like build a campaign and run it for 3 months and like, wow, that was great. And it's like, okay, now we're back to zero again. Like we want to build something that is truly like an investment. That's how I
Why do
see
you
SEO. Yeah.
why do you feel that most people who end up leaving you guys, is it to just pull their money from marketing, or do you feel they're going elsewhere?
It's a good question. I think it's a few reasons. Sometimes they will go with somebody else. They're like, "Hey, it didn't happen in the time frame that they wanted it to.
Yeah.
Didn't go fast enough, or whatever it was." Because we're always going to be able to make progress. The question is, can we make progress fast enough for that owner to feel like that's never done
Mm-hmm.
marketing before is now like, I believe in marketing. Um, Believe it or not, some people pull because they get too many leads. That's the classic like interview question, like, what's your biggest weakness or whatever. Like, I'm a perfectionist, but it's reality. Like, it just happened 3 weeks ago. Somebody's like, we're getting too many leads, we can't handle the work, and we're starting to get negative word of mouth around like how we're
Mm.
responding. So they wanted to pause. um, and then there's always like somebody that will swoop in and point out all the little thing like, oh, you could be doing this better, and they have a good sales pitch, and so somebody jump ship. um, I would say those are probably the three most common reasons.
Are
Yeah.
you are you guys the one measuring the inbound leads?
Mm-hmm.
So that's all. So you're doing everything through HubSpot, right?
Yeah.
Like you're basically, so you've built, stop me when I'm wrong, but you've built a framework.
Stop.
What a great co-host.
That was so perfect. That was like that is my life. Um, so you've built this framework for builders and remodelers, and you've, for the lack of better term, like you've perfected it in terms of what works, and you're plugging that into HubSpot, which is this centralized CRM, and you're utilizing that for SEO, content creation, the actual content posting, you know, inbound leads. So when someone fills out a contact form on their website, it's going into HubSpot and you're monitoring it. But, say like Tyler would be getting the email as well. And you're watching, okay, Tyler just responded via email.
I would say
And
that's where I'll pause you. We're not like keeping tabs on sales follow up that closely, but we
got it.
can see
Okay.
it. We can
So
see it,
what
but
once you
we're
have
the
a lead,
marketers.
you're just like, check, it's a lead. You have it, you get it from here.
And we do nurture the lead from like I would say a one to many or a automation like one to one. It's set up by us, but we're not following up like, hey, I saw you downloaded our cost guide. Like, hey, sales
Yeah.
activities is within the company.
Yeah.
We and we're pushing more and more into that area because, as you can imagine, we're marketers,
Hmm.
but we're heavily like our success depends on sales ability, sales skill, follow up process
Sure.
on the sales side, ability to deliver. How unique is the company? Like, are we even marketing something that's that different than everyone else in the market? Like, there's so many things out of our control. So we're trying to chip away into some of those other areas to minimize that.
Do you
The
have sorry, go ahead, Nick.
I was gonna say the automation is really cool, and I messed around with a chatbot for a while on our website where it's like someone would get on our website, fill out a form, and they would get an immediate text message like, "Hey, thanks for filling out the form. This is Nick. Is there anything I can help you with?" And then my phone would ding and say, "Hey, we're currently chatting with a potential client." And I thought it led to nothing. Like I don't think we had the right questions, and I certainly didn't take the time to really like set it up well, but again, it's just like this is a really cool opportunity where, at the end of the day, sometimes we're losing sales because of lack of follow up. Where
Yeah.
it's like, and people talk about it all the time. It's like the faster you can respond to a lead, the higher your chance of getting that job is. And
Yeah.
anytime I respond to an inbound lead the same day, the response is always like, "Thanks for getting back to me so quickly. Period. This is what I want to do. Are you available to do this?" It's like I have as though I have the project.
Yeah.
And
The
the
speed to lead
and
data
just
is pretty compelling. Yeah.
yeah, and I mean follow up is huge, and it's and it's not just the fact that like you're following up, but it's also that they either lose confidence in the fact that you're interested or that you might not, maybe you don't check your email enough. It's not that they're like, hey, this guy doesn't respond fast enough, I don't want to work with him. It's they're probably thinking that he didn't respond, so he's not interested in now I'm moving on.
100%. Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot that gets lost from that first conversion to booking a meeting.
Do you have like a geographic non-compete for people who you represent or clients?
Typically, yes, if we're doing everything, like if we're doing the implementation.
That's interesting. Um, and another question that I have for you, when most contractors or business owners come to you, what do you feel that they're failing with the most when it comes to marketing? Like, what's their biggest shortcoming?
I'll maybe throw out a couple things because I think the real answer is that most people have either done none or so little of it, or they've dabbled in it, that they kind of think like, oh, I built this $2 million company. I'm ready to go to five. If I throw $1,000 at marketing, that's $1,000 more than I've done in the past.
Yeah.
This will blow things up. So just getting around that hurdle of that's not how it works, and they haven't really done anything in the past. But kind of pushing that to the side and saying, okay, somebody that's kind of like they've got a website, they add some projects, they're maybe blog randomly, send a newsletter once a quarter, they're on social, like somebody in that zone. It's usually not knowing why they're doing the things, having the tracking in place, and almost everybody is missing that lead conversion step for the 96%.
Yeah.
If you walk away from this podcast and you don't have a top of funnel lead conversion offer on your website, you are getting traffic today that has no conversion opportunity because they're not ready for the contact us. They're not ready for the phone call. If you install that on your top 10 to 20 trafficked pages, you will get more leads today. You can call those people. I saw you downloaded our cost guide. Did you have any questions? Are you thinking about a project? It's pretty overwhelming. I'm happy. I'm here to help. I can answer some questions for you. Like if you don't
Right.
have enough work right now, you should be calling those people. Whereas we always just think, oh, they downloaded something. Like they're not interested. Like that's a worthless. Like, are you kidding? That's somebody
Yeah.
that's researching.
It it's interesting to think about as well because you look at every big company, whether it's in the building industry or the construction industry or not, and the amount of marketing and money that goes into this. And they are creating the leads and the work that fits their program. And then you look at most small contractors or remodeling contractors or builders, and they're basically chameleons that fit whatever leads come across their plate. And it's like every single job. Okay, so maybe you have an $85,000 standard, but then you are taking anything and everything that comes across your plate between there. And it's how are you supposed to be an efficient, profitable business if you are just you have no system for generating the leads that fit your business? And I think that that is a big issue within our industry where nobody knows what their bread and butter is. Like it's not you can't just say you do kitchens. There has to be some kitchens that are more profitable. You can't just say you do full house remodels. There's jobs that you should be looking for and customers and leads that you should be vetting, and every big company does that, but our industry doesn't. It's just it's interesting to think about. Which I guess leads me to when I understand that your family background is in construction, and the impetus for a lot of this was when you guys had to do something about the market collapse and the new construction market collapse and get more dip your toes more heavily into um, remodeling and sell those type of jobs. But when you started your business, did you feel as though there was a greater opportunity because there just isn't a ton of marketing companies and agencies that are fulfilling the needs of this space and this size?
Honestly, I didn't have ownership in that business, and I just was finding and developing an interest in marketing. So
Yeah,
I just was doing the marketing and loved it. And so it wasn't like I don't know that I even would have had that opportunity to like have ownership in that company, buy into it.
sure.
Wasn't even on my radar. So I don't think I had the business savvy to be like opportunity cost here. Keep building this business in this market and scale it out, or do something, or start this other
Not
agency.
even that. I just mean in general, like the market that you like your ideal client.
Mm-hmm.
It seems as though there's not a lot of agencies out there willing to represent these clients. And did you see somewhat of a hole in that market with your experience in the past and with the family side of the business that you were like, yeah, this is a part of the market that has nobody really fulfilling the needs of this sales demographic?
I think I'd be lying if I said yes. I mean, I think I really just picked it more because I had the experience, and then it was like,
Yeah,
oh, I feel more confident going down this path. And we had a few clients that we were doing well with in that space with some other random other industries. And I knew from a marketing perspective for us, we needed to be different. And so I think I went through a little checklist as we were like, how are we going to do this? And picking that industry. But I don't think at that time I had the context of like, who else is serving this industry and how competitive is it? As we've gotten into it, I think we've just figured that out as a byproduct. Like there really just aren't a lot that are focused and dedicated to solely this industry. So
yeah. I feel
uh,
like it would be really difficult. because everyone does stuff differently, and every customer that probably comes across your plate probably has a different idea as to what marketing is and what the budget should be and how they operate your business.
Hmm.
I almost think, like, from an outsider's perspective, that it's like marketing yourself to roofers or siders or these type of people that just need like massive lead generation and there's not that much differentiation would be like the easiest thing to do. And it's like, it seems like you're picking a really difficult market to get good at.
Yes, and that's okay. Um, I think everything is grass is always greener. And at this point, like we're 13 years in and we've figured out a lot and we've figured out how to bust through some of those challenges. We know how to have some of those conversations where somebody's never done marketing before. We do have some plans that we can start people on, in less of that range we talked about. If it's like, we can guide you, we can help, like we can add a lot of value in a lot of areas, and that's fun. And I told my team a couple of years ago, I'm like, look, let's just set our North Star as like, let's be the best marketing agency for design, build, remodelers. Like, let's pick our corner of this world and just shoot for that. And I'm not saying we are the best, because I think that's just an ever chasing, you're always chasing that. But like, that's fun to think about. And from a like culture and team standpoint, like striving to be the best and knowing you have a shot, versus if we're like, let's be the best marketing agency, period. Like, sorry, that just doesn't feel like that's within reach. So
Mm,
I agree with you. Like, we picked a tough battle, but also, like you said, there's less competition. So in some
Yeah.
ways, it's easy. Like, everything's grass is greener. So we like
Yeah.
it
It,
here.
it, it, I'm, it is a very interesting like market segment that you're in because I can't imagine there's many of you, which is like a pro, but at the same time, that's also a con because it's like what are we backing ourselves up against? What are we comparing ourselves to? What you almost have to create all of your own data. Like if you went bigger, there's companies that have done this before and companies that have the analytics to and the metrics to gauge, and then you go into a different market or not remodeling and it's like, yeah, people have been marketing these type of companies for years and they did before this and they understand, and it's like you're almost pitching this to companies who have never truly considered this, and then having to create and generate all of your own analytics and data, but at the same time, like that makes you useful and valuable. So it depends on what side of the coin you look at, and I don't know if there's a right or wrong. I was just thinking to myself while I'm like, damn, this would be easier to pitch to like roofers versus like
Yeah.
they just want
or
leads.
even any specialty sub. It's
You like
like,
mold remediation.
Yeah.
dude, I think
Just
about the
crank up the
fact that
Google
like,
ads and call it good.
Yeah, man.
but that's just it. It's like they have like their project duration is so short.
But why don't we just become roofers?
I mean, I haven't not thought about that.
You know?
Yeah.
I mean, I think that, I mean, it's roofing specifically. Some of the wealthiest people I know are and were in that trade.
Dude, if it doesn't leak, just send it. It's good
Send it,
enough.
yeah. Firestone warranty and moving on.
Yeah, man.
Um, but it is. It's like that. Like I said this to one of my demo contractors. I'm like, the fact that you're on a job for 1 to 5 days,
Yeah,
and it's like you're thinking about that constantly. I'm thinking about like, all right, this guy
years.
is parked here for 2 years. This is what am I gonna do with him after that? And then you spend a year. You spend a year trying to figure that out.
Do your roofers, Nick, typically subcontract their labor out?
Some of them, yeah.
Yeah, so that's like a big thing around here with a lot of roofers is they're
They,
essentially sales teams.
I call them pimps.
Yeah, so they like sell and then they hire somebody, and
Yeah,
they do have a handful of guys
yeah. Some of them.
that work for them, but like most of them, they bring in other crews to work for them. And there's one or two that have smaller crews, and even they have trouble staying busy, keeping their crews busy. Where it's like, yeah, they're on a job instead of for a half a day, they're there for like 2 days, and I'm like, why aren't they done with this roof yet? They should be done by 11 o'clock in the morning. It's just a different way of doing things. But yeah, like the turnover on those jobs is insane. Like imagine the
Yeah.
coordination it would take to have a new customer every 2 days.
Well, it's like I mean, it's like those vans you see. It's like framing, roofing, siding, decks,
Yeah.
tile, and it's. And I've talked to some of them. Like we have. I know one crew. They do framing, siding, roofing, and then just miscellaneous carpentry. And he's like, yeah, we fluctuate between like 120, 140 guys. And
I
I'm
just saw
like,
a truck that there was like handyman services, painting, decks, and plumbing. And I'm like,
Oh, jeez.
not sure about that. Like, I feel like
and
something's
and,
off
and
here.
they always snowplow, like
Oh
always
yeah.
snowplow.
Yep.
But it's like 140 guys just thinking about like where they are every
Insane.
day. And I mean, and I guess this goes to your point, Spencer. It's like it's volume, right? So
Right.
if you just have a huge volume of work coming in, you know, I think this conversation is like reinvigorating my desire to go down the rabbit hole of like proper marketing strategy, which maybe we'll talk about after this podcast. But it is an interesting concept to think that you know, especially on a consumer end, right? Like everything that you buy, you're influenced to buy. And I said it earlier. It's like this shirt I'm wearing. I got an ad on Instagram 20 times, and then finally I joined. I actually I didn't even just buy the shirt. I joined their VIP membership so I
You
could
went
get
all
10.
in. Yeah.
I went all in. I was like, screw it, $200 for a VIP membership. Yeah, I'll
Yeah.
do that.
I'm a
And then
VIP. Yeah.
yeah, I'm VIP. Like I'll buy more than just one shirt. And then it's like, and of course it's like, well, I have to buy more because I'm a VIP. And then I tell my buddies, I'm like, hey, just so you know, I'm VIP, so I'll get you a discount. And they're like, dude, I'm also a VIP. I'm like, damn. But the reality, like everything I have is somehow influenced by marketing. And
Mhm.
and to think that like our industry, we are so word of mouth based, which there's value to that, no doubt. Like if my buddy said, hey, you got to buy this shirt, it's the nicest shirt I've ever worn, I'd buy the shirt. And we are oftentimes just completely avoiding the whole marketing strategy because, well, maybe we have enough work coming in right now, and we'll turn that marketing dial off, and when I need work, I'll turn it back on. And it's the reality is like you can't you know but what's the saying, ABC always be closing. It's like you got
Yeah.
to always, like, you always have to be marketing, you always have to be building that pipeline. And for me personally, I want to have a 3-year pipeline. Like that's my goal. That's like when I sit down and think strategy and business, like I would love to have 3 years of work scheduled, and be in a position where I'm not only always marketing, but I'm also always hiring.
You just fire everyone.
Huh?
And you have for like 5 years of work lined up.
The problem is if I
Easy. Problem solved. You
yeah,
don't need Spencer.
and then my
So yeah.
clients are like, yeah, we're gonna go find another builder.
Oh
So
man.
here's the thing about the word of mouth thing. A lot of this industry is built on word of mouth, right?
Hmm.
And so you're going, okay, that's good. That means service was good, customer experience, customer happiness high. Imagine if you actually did some marketing and you brought more customers into the fold that were now going to be sharing and spreading the word. Like you're
Hmm.
just building only off this word of mouth. And because we only pretty much do one project per client, sometimes more, but generally it's not a reoccurring business. Every year you want
Yeah.
to grow, you got to resell everything all over again and more. Imagine if you did some marketing and poured some fuel on the word of mouth fire. That's what I always like. That's a big opportunity.
It's
Hmm.
true. And you like, especially with a small business, if there's no proper marketing or marketing at all, you're only going to grow as big as that referral market's going to get, and you're only going to ever do the jobs that you're doing now and that you've documented before. There's no way to really grow, or you can organically, but it's going to take so much longer than developing a proper marketing plan to do so. Like the growth is going to be so slow and so controlled, and you're only ever going to be as big as that small word of mouth network. And for a lot of people, that's just not enough.
All right. I want to. So who? Like you obviously have seen our content. We've chatted before. You know what my grand plans are. We've talked off mic about some of them. But you looking at my content and what we're doing in terms of marketing and social media strategy. When you look at our stuff, where do you see room for improvement?
I would love to go behind the scenes,
What do you
honestly.
want to know? What do you want to know?
How
Like
much
you want
traffic do you get? How many leads do you get a month on the website?
leads less than, I would say, qualified leads or just leads in general?
Just raw leads, total number. Form
Uh,
submissions, contact
for,
us, anything else.
form submission, I would say less than 15.
A
Less than
month, did you say?
15?
Yeah. Yeah.
Less than 15.
Yeah.
Oh, you got room. You got so much room.
I know. I know I do.
Then, I mean, probably your biggest gap is going to be blog, project spotlights, SEO, ranking in Google. If you're only getting 15 a month on the website and in Boston,
That's a total guess. So let me see if I
sure.
can.
But even if it was 30,
Oh yeah, it's definitely not one a day.
you can get that over 100 for sure.
Yeah, and most of them are not qualified. I would say most of them are not qualified.
Yeah.
So 3 days.
Because so
My
you've
last one
got
was
the
3 days
content,
ago.
but
Yeah.
probably like you have a big audience on probably social and
Hmm.
podcasts and that kind of stuff. But the people that are coming through Google have buying intent. They're looking for a company. And
Right.
so you're going to get more of those people, but you also will get the people that have like future buying intent. They're researching.
Yeah.
You've got all the content to nurture, to engage those people, but you're not getting enough of the right people initially into that content
Today.
world you have.
And this
Because,
is
yeah, if you get more of those people consuming your social, seeing you, like all the personal brands, like that stuff, you'll close a lot harder, but you're just not
mhm.
getting that first wave.
Yeah, the
It-
sick thing is you could charge Nick whatever you want to. It doesn't matter.
oh yeah,
So
I print
Sweet.
money.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, he's big bucks Nick, right? So, I mean, he's a VIP. So,
yeah, seriously.
Oh shit.
That's amazing.
I mean, I know, I know that we can increase lead flow, and it's something that we talk about a lot. I I had this conversation a couple of weeks ago with some of my team, and actually, Tyler, you and I were chatting about it, but you know, a lot of my life, and a lot of the decisions I make, I convince myself to do them because I think, or I believe that they will inevitably pay off eventually. And one of the things I think about with social media, like someone asked me what we spend in social media and or marketing in general. I'll just say it here. We spend close to 200 grand a year in content creation. That's a substantial amount of money. Like substantial. And they followed up, it's like, does that pay you back? And I'm like, well, not entirely. Like, yes, I'm closing multi-million dollar deals, and they're like, yeah, I found you through Instagram. I followed you for 5 years, and here I am calling you, and we're building a house that's, multiple millions of dollars. I could write that off as like, there I go. Like that was worth the investment. And recently I keep thinking about just social media, and, someone asked why we're on TikTok. I'm like, well, because I know that there's an audience there that it doesn't have a builder in their life, and they're not going to build a home for 1, 2, 5 years, but eventually they're going to circle back. And I can't tell you how many people I read in the comments like, dude, I can't wait till I make it, and I contact you, and you're going to build my house. And I know, like, not every one of those are going to come to fruition, but there's people that are being nurtured by what we're doing that will eventually convert. The key word there is eventually, and might, like, they might eventually convert, right? Where what you're talking about, forget that. Like, what about the people that are actively in your store right now looking to buy a product? it's like, yeah, that's great. Like these people are walking by your store and you have a great storefront and it's super cool and they can't wait to afford to buy that pair of that t-shirt. But ultimately it's like, what about the people in your store? You're ignoring them. Like, or in the mall looking around like for the perfect t-shirt. It's like, well, you're kind of looking past them and trying to find the person that will eventually buy.
So this will be the teaser for our next pod where we can talk about brand,
All
because
right.
you did it the hard way, and backwards,
Classic.
which I think is better, because brand is basically what we're talking about, and it's
Mm,
you're building a brand and you're playing a longer game, which is to your advantage, but not necessarily all in the short term. But if you added some strategies in the short term layered in with your long-term thinking of brand, then you would experience more short-term wins along the way.
mm-hmm.
But I think that's great that you said, like, sometimes I think entrepreneurs, you can tell, you're like, I know I just need to be doing this and it's probably going to take a long time, but I'm committed to doing it. That's how it was for our podcast, right? I told our team, like, we're going to do this for a year before we even see if we're going to keep going or not. But most people are like, I need this to work in 2 weeks or I'm shutting it off, right? Like, and so we have a lot more of those conversations, was like, when, in 3 months, are we going to land those first, bunch of projects? And it's like, probably not. And that's the hard conversation. But for you, you're already committed to a long-term game. And so now it's just layering in some of the short term.
I love the fact that everyone gets to just hear me spend money on this podcast. Because we're
That's
all
what it's
like,
about.
next hiring Spencer. If we see changes, we're gonna know it's builder funnel.
It's a write-off.
It is, yeah. I love that scene from Schitt's Creek. It's a write off. Who pays for it? I don't know. The write off people.
That's got to be a top all time.
Oh my god, yeah.
Yeah.
So you alluded to the fact that we're gonna have another episode about branding. So is that? And I'm all for it. I think I would love to unpack the fact that you think that I did it the hard way. Which I mean I can see that. I think that
I'm not
that's
saying
where.
that's bad either. Just
No,
for the record.
I'm
Yeah.
with you. I think that you know the conversation I had with Tyler about that I just alluded to. It's like that has been really top of mind. Where it's like him and I talk about it all the time. Like this podcast we've been doing for 6+ years, and there's there. This is an investment of time, like specifically time, and yes, of course, like we've also dumped a fair amount of money into it, but just the time alone is worth a lot. 6 years, uh, you know, multiple hours per week. There's value there, and the conversation, just like anything in NS Builders and the millwork company and in the media company and the podcast, it's like when does that pendulum swing? How much time are you going to invest into something that is for the long term? And when are you going to focus on what's right, the opportunity that's right in front of you, rather than waiting for the perfect moment to ask? It's like you just keep doing it, thinking that eventually, something's going to pay off, instead of being like, how about I have more control? Like I know I can turn this on and just increase revenue, increase
Yeah,
lead flow.
I mean, to put it simply, I feel that that's like what it's all about, and that's what having a plan is about. And I don't think that. I mean, I think that even the people who think that they have a marketing plan don't. Maybe it's just creating more leads or generating more leads, but it's not necessarily tailored to what they want as well. Um, and to put it simply, I feel that if you are not, you're losing opportunity. You're losing opportunity to make more money, to be doing the jobs that you want, to be doing possibly fewer jobs and more quality jobs. And it's definitely worth the opportunity to try and implement or bring somebody on board to get you where you want to be. Because if not, you're at the mercy of the market to dictate what type of jobs you're doing, and essentially it's whatever lands on your plate. It's not shaped according to what you want to be doing and what's best for your company.
Well said.
Thanks. Well, I'm excited for the branding conversation as well.
Are you booked already for another episode?
I don't think so,
Oh,
but
then I'll make sure that we get you back on. Um, what else? What before we let you go? What else you have working, or what else do you have going on in the background that might be new or something you're excited about?
yeah, we got a couple things. I'll share one of them because it's a little closer. But the topic of web design comes up a lot in our world,
Yeah.
and everyone wants a custom website.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, in the web design world, custom means untested, unproven.
Ah, shit.
And so we have been working for quite a while on a performance based website for design build companies. And so, you can ask me a couple more questions or we can leave it at that, but it's almost ready for public consumption, I guess.
With, I guess the one question I have there, and then I'll let you roll it out. But what is the number one thing you see that a website for like a design build firm is missing in terms of performance?
I want to pick two. Sorry, I'm going to
Okay,
break your question.
that's fine.
SEO and lead conversion.
Okay.
SEO would be like, what's the keyword strategy? And then technical, like, we're in an industry, big images, awesome, but
Hmm.
like, man, if they're not compressed and they don't load quickly, your site is going to load slow and that's going to hurt. Um,
What about call to actions?
that's lead conversion.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
So
Yeah,
calls to action, landing pages, like,
yeah.
but like integrated into the site and not just like slapped on there. And so, and it makes sense for the user. Like, they're on this page. What's the conversion opportunity? They're at this stage of the buying cycle. What's the conversion opportunity? Like, really thinking through.
Hmm.
That's why we were calling it more of a performance driven theme, because it's around how do we drive traffic, leads, and sales,
Yeah,
instead of like, cool, this looks super different and it's pretty, but if nobody gets there, it really doesn't matter. Just like if you get a million people to your site and it doesn't convert, also doesn't matter.
yeah. I think that's the most interesting thing that I'm seeing right now, especially around these personal brands that are popping up, is the ability that they're converting them into leads, right? I think of like Grant Cardone,
Mm-hmm.
Ryan Pineda, all of these guys that were, you know, doing something and then decided to go all in on their personal brand, but also have a website that when you go to, you every time you scroll, it's like do this, do this, do this, do this, do this, and sign up, sign up, sign. And if you, even for me, like I know it's there and I know it's a strategy, but I still find myself, it's like, all right, you know what? I kind of do want to see what Ryan's newsletter looks like, so I'm going to sign up. And it's like, who
Mm-hmm.
cares if I? And then next thing I know, it's like he's like, hey, I'm going to be in this area. If you want to golf with me, fill out this form and maybe I'll invite you. I'm like, I suck at golf, but sure, I'll fill out that form. And
Yeah.
then it's like, then I get an email. It's like, hey, heard you're a golfer. I'm like, well, I'm not a golfer, but
Yeah.
but it's almost as though we could argue that in now, like with this ability to market and SEO strategy and marketing strategy, that you could build a business from zero to completely lead flowing in a very short amount of time and and grow your business to an infinite amount
Mm-hmm.
based on how much you're willing to invest in on the marketing end.
Yeah, and certain categories have more reach and more, like, obviously you mentioned a couple of guys, like, the strategy there is go to the masses,
Hmm.
bring people in, they have price points that they know will work with that. They've thought through the conversion, they've thought through the whole funnel, right? The whole strategy
Yeah.
behind that, and it works.
Hmm. Cool. I,
This stuff is fun. I like
it
marketing
is fun.
stuff.
It
Yeah.
is fun, and I know we've chatted about it before, and even offline. And it's like, it's something that I continually try to figure out on my own. And the reality is, I'm going to shoot you a text message after this, and we'll schedule a call. But there we
So,
are.
I
Cool.
appreciate you guys having me.
Yeah, man.
Yeah,
Hopefully,
thanks for making the time.
hopefully our podcast converts for you. we'll want to understand the numbers behind that. We'll give you, just so we can. So when we put a testimony on our website, it's like, hey, we converted Spencer's. We 2x'd Spencer's business over one episode. So
Yeah.
come be on our podcast
Easily.
Yeah.
$2 to $5 million.
I'll just write you a check. Yeah. You'll know. You'll just get one in the mail and you're like, okay, it converted.
Nice royalties.
Yeah.
Spencer, I appreciate you being on, man. I appreciate what you do and sharing, what you've done over the last 13 years, and that's cool.
Yeah. So
Cool.
what's the best place for people to find you?
Honestly, builderfunnel.com. Go jump into the content. If you like YouTube, look us up there. If you like the podcast, Builder Funnel Radio, Builder Funnel TV, we're easy to find. I always just tell people, go to whatever channel you prefer, because we're out there.
Who's running the Instagram? You?
No, it would be terrible if I was running it.
Fair enough.
Somebody on my
Maybe
team.
you and Nick can trade. Nick will run your Instagram. You can do his marketing.
Beautiful. That'd be a good trade.
I haven't posted in 3 days. I gotta get back on there.
Dude, what have you been doing?
I know. Well, I don't know. So.
Slacking.
Cool.
Thanks, man. Appreciate your time.
Likewise.
That stuff is so interesting to me.
It's kind of creepy to me. Not gonna lie.
I mean, I understand why people find it to be creepy, but I don't know. I think it's cool.
It doesn't bother me. It is. But it's not what I want for my business.
Mm-hmm.
So it's nothing I've like dug that deeply into.
Sure.
But if I were curious about it, I would be all on board, because it's like a no-brainer to go that route.
But I feel like so many, even some of the businesses that you think just naturally grew, like, no, they utilize strategy like this.
Dude, every company, yeah, like it's the smart thing to do.
Even think about just like the podcast. If we were to utilize a strategy like that for the podcast, what our reach could be.
Absolutely.
It's like, oh, I didn't know this podcast existed because I don't follow Nick and Tyler on Instagram.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. It's got me thinking. If you guys have, well, I'm curious at what you guys' thoughts are. So head over to our Instagram, drop a comment below Spencer's clip, and let us know if you're utilizing SEO or what marketing strategy that you are utilizing if it's not SEO. And if this is all new to you, let us know that too. And in the meantime, if you could please do us a favor, head over to iTunes, drop us a quick review. Let us know how we're doing. Keeps us in the top spot for construction-related career development podcasts. It would be hugely appreciated. It only takes a quick minute. And finally, if you know someone that would appreciate content like this, make sure you share the podcast with them. And until then, we'll talk to you guys next week.
Yeah, until we can afford a full marketing budget, we're relying on word of mouth referrals. So
there we are.
Do us a solid.
Do us a solid, man.